have a genuine fear that Christians have lowered the bar on excellence due to the Christian market. But just because you desire to do something does not mean you ought to. Welcome back to Cultivating Truth, where culture and faith collide. My name is Aaron Davis from Aletheia Legacy. On our biweekly podcast, we dive into current cultural events and explore how Christians should respond to them. We believe that hearing from different artists and creatives helps us cultivate truth, enabling us to impact the world through the Aletheia Legacy's mission of creating beauty, engaging the culture, and inspiring others. In this episode, I'm going to be flying solo, and we'll be addressing what is undoubtedly one of the cringiest and most unfortunate aspects of Christian culture. But before we go too deep onto that topic, let's take a moment to acknowledge that we have missed a few months. Now, of course, we had our last three episodes go out with Shepherd Heeb and Sean from Otherworldly, but a lot has happened in the world. Before we go into that, I want to say the reason we took off was we needed to take some time to reconstruct our platform. During that time, a number of things happened. So, as a result, our Aletheia Legacy team has decided to release Cultivating Truth twice a month on the second and fourth weeks of every month. We're also excited to announce that we'll be featuring more guest creatives who will share their creative journeys, upcoming projects, and stories of faithfulness. We're looking forward to the work ahead and are praying that the Lord blesses our listeners as we integrate truth into the culture. So, catching up on what has happened since we last met, let's see. Oppenheimer and Succession did great at the Golden Globes. Kanye West seems to have made a comeback, but no longer in his Christian phase. Speaking of Christians, Little Nas X has been playfully trolling Christians with his worship music. Please, please, please. I hope no one took that seriously. Jay-Z criticizing the Grammys for not recognizing his boo Beyonce for ever getting an album of the year. And of course, there seems to be a little bit of competition between Beyonce and Taylor Swift because Taylor Swift just continues to make waves with her upcoming album. And of course, we cannot forget that this was Taylor's Super Bowl, which just so happens to be the highest viewing Super Bowl game, US program ever. On the quieter side of arts, on the Christian side in the community, Kingdom Story Company has announced a big slate of projects for the next year with the recent release of Ordinary Angels and For King and Country's Unsung Hero, set to be released in late April. With Kingdom Story Company, Angel Studios, the upcoming Bonhoeffer movie, looking forward to that, and the Kendricks brothers with The Forge, all contributing into 2024, this could potentially be the biggest year ever in Christian films. Now, with all that stuff going on, let's address a significant hurdle that believers must overcome when it comes to art. As someone who has had the privilege of attending many screenings over the past few months, I've witnessed some truly great art. I'm so excited for the Christian art movement that is going on now. However, I must be honest and say that not everything has been exceptional. As a fervent supporter of Christian arts and media, I aspire to infiltrate the industry alongside the next person sitting in the back of the pews. But there's a significant challenge that we must address. This is what my students would say is ick. And it is the fact that so many Christians love to play the knock. Now, what's a knock? Well, a knockoff is an imitation or a copy of something that is of value or expensive. This is what makes me, I don't say this lightly, but ashamed of my American Christian culture. It's cringy, many times cheesy, and we really just need to stop with the knockoff. So many Christian productions and music want to play this knockoff game. You don't know how many times I've been to Christian conferences or networking events or hear about people wanting to be the Christian, you name it. The Christian Avengers, the Christian Taylor Swift. I've even heard the Christian Cardi B. I don't know how you could be the Christian Cardi B. It just sounds like it's contradictory. I know that this sounds funny, but I'm going to be honest. This is getting very old. We need to take a good, hard look in the mirror at what we're doing. Check out this clip from our last episode.
So yeah, if you're gonna be a Christian artist, it better be good. Like, and I think that's a reasonable expectation. If you're gonna do something unto the glory of God, then and obviously there are seasons and people are
Yeah.
developing, and I get that, but don't like think you're the bee's knees and like you put out some whack stuff and just because you said something about Jesus, it's good.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's not how this works.
In this clip, Sean Mitchell from Otherworldly and I sat down answering questions sent in from the Transcend Creative Panel in Virginia. Shout out to Transcend and Sean. Love what you guys are doing with Otherworldly, and everyone should look out for Transcend in 2024. But seriously, if we're going to make art, it must be good. You see us laughing and having a good time about this, but this is something that we take very, very seriously. When it comes to creating art, the concept of good can indeed be subjective. However, it is important to recognize that art can also have a foundation or framework that gives it depth and meaning. While pure expression can be a valid form of art, it may not always result in a universally appreciated piece. Artists often draw inspiration from various sources in artistic movement throughout history. For example, modern art would not be what it is unless it was inspired and influenced by Impressionism, which likewise was inspired by realism, and previously the Baroque era, and the Baroque era being inspired by the Renaissance. These influences provide artists with a rich tapestry of ideas and technique to explore and build upon. We see this throughout human history. But the problem lies with the lack of creative skill and innovation that is all too common in the Christian circles to not only be inspired by, but simply hijack a well thought through creative piece and slap some Jesus on it. Undoubtedly, there is a reason why someone would want to be associated with the Christian MCU or the Christian Taylor Swift. It stems from the attempt to replicate a product that has been marketed to a different audience and marketed well, but with preferred parameters in hopes of achieving similar success. Unfortunately, these attempts often fall short. It doesn't always transition well. A prime example of a knockoff is a product that closely resembles a purse from maybe Chanel or an item from Dior, with only a slight variation to the logo. While they may look similar, they don't sell nearly as well and can bring a sense of shame to the buyer once they realize it's not genuine. For instance, if someone can't afford a pair of Jordans, they might be tempted to buy a number of the knockoff or replicas of an imitation of this shoe. But they would likely prefer maybe just wear Vans or Chuck Taylors as an alternative popular option. They don't necessarily have to wear the knockoff. They can just go get something else. The same principle applies to movies and music. Just because something has a higher budget doesn't mean somebody else wants to see that with a cheaper budget. Compared to a knockoff, I would much more prefer an original, budget friendly idea. Doesn't matter how much it costs. This is why remakes often fail to leave a lasting impact. Producers try to replicate the nostalgia of the past, but often fall short of fulfilling that need or desire. While remakes can be cool, people generally appreciate and gravitate towards originality. I've been around Christianity most of my life and feel that when it comes to artistic expression, there's often no standard. We praise mediocrity just because someone wants to do it for Jesus. Doesn't matter how bad it is. Now, I understand how this can come across. It can come across rude, but just because you desire to do something, even if it's for Jesus, does not mean you ought to. This is not in an aggressive, nasty way, but I have a genuine fear that Christians have lowered the bar on excellence due to the Christian market. You don't know how many artists that I know and I've had a chance to talk to who are legit God fearing believers who do who want nothing to do with the label Christian artist. It's because it carries a self-inflicted stigma, a lack of excellency, what you expect with a brand. I hate when we say a Christian this or a more Christian way of doing that, because whether or not it's true, I feel we are more focused on a lackluster market more than an original God given idea. Now, stay with me. I have an illustration from the Bible that I'm eventually going to get. So instead of pursuing unique and innovative creations, there seems to be a greater emphasis on conforming to a certain market or being known for what we lack or hate. All too common, I hear about what Christians should dislike rather than what we should like. And I have to be honest, I was extremely disappointed by so many believers negatively responding to the He Gets Us movement on the Super Bowl. Not just disappointed, honestly, discouraged. For whatever reason, on my team, there are people who love Jesus, Jesus freaks here, but we somehow are more known for what we disapprove of than we actually love. Christians are saying that this is no good because it only shows a glimpse of the gospel and it's not complete. I get frustrated because I think, how do you think Jesus taught his parables? Do you think he just yelled at them and said, I hate your sin and you will burn until you believe me? No, he actually taught his followers parables and stories that had biblical heavenly truths. And actually, his disciples had a problem. And they had a problem with Jesus being so cryptic. He had to address them and correct them. There's such division with this campaign. On one side, we see that the church or Christians hate any attempt of someone wanting to open up this Jesus conversation because it's not how they would have done it. And the other side thinks that 14 million should have been used somewhere else, like feeding the homeless. Some people have even gone as far as this YouTuber to make a version of this ad on their own. This example is replacing He Gets Us with He Saves Us, which is great. It's true. I say it all the time. But I can't help but think that this is done with a vain spite towards another creative. Love it or hate it, but billionaire David Green, the founder of Hobby Lobby, a business founded on biblical principles, which is not known as a Christian version of anything. No, they are the store when you think of crafting and decorating. Anywho, David Green gets behind the organization called Come Near, where millions of dollars, $100 million campaign of He Gets Us, was spent to spread this message of Jesus. We can find other videos mocking this ad, such as the well known Christian satire Babylon Bee, that essentially use this as a joke, saying that Jesus doesn't care about what you do or what you've done, showing riots, showing anything that is clearly biblically opposed to Jesus' message, but basically saying that anyone can come and get saved. But that is just not, I really think that we're reading way too much into. But whether you're the Babylon Bee or Jamie Bambrick, who made the He Saves Us video, which once again is a good video, it's fine, but terrible timing. And of course, you're using your platforms as mockery and essentially ripping an idea that another creative had first. I really think that these channels should be thanking people like the Come Near campaign and David Green for the millions that went into this campaign so that they could essentially have content and go slightly viral over this past couple of weeks. You see, nearly 500,000 have now seen the He Saves Us video, which is really big, right? But that is nothing compared to the hundreds of millions who He Gets Us. And how arrogant of us to say we could do it. We mock, criticize, and try to do a better job than those who are going out there, breaking their back to be artists with excellence. Just because you would have done it differently doesn't mean that you would have ever hit the standard. You could easily say that you would have done it different, but you don't have 14 million. As Super Bowl winning head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Mike Tomlin would say, the standard is the standard. How do you know that you would hit the standard? Just because you desire it? Well, desire does not override excellence. Just because you want to be good does not mean that you are actually good at it. And just because you want to stamp a Jesus bumper sticker on the back of a project does not mean it's actually well done or excellent. Or even hitting the standard. You must work hard. Try, fail, try again, get back up, grow. Take the story of Samson that we can find in the book of Judges. Have you ever read the story of Samson? Like, actually, not just hearing about it, but actually read the story of Samson in Judges? I mean, it's outrageous. My stance on the Bible is that I take it as the literal, inerrant word of God, which is sufficient in instructing me in my life. Good for reproof. At times, there's poetic language, but a story like this is meant to be true. The man known as Samson was a warrior and a judge and was known for being a legendary fighter. He was the standard. Everyone knew about Samson. He was the example of a brute strength and was the goal of what it means for, or what it takes for civil combat. When the Philistines were training all year long, they were thinking about Samson. They had him on their mind. I mean, this man put out a reign of terror for 20 years. Although the Philistines wanted to stop Samson, they had no standard. They had nothing to match up with the standard of excellence that Samson provided. You see, Samson revealed that the source of his excellence was God's blessing of his hair. He had a gift. It was unmatched by anyone else, sent directly from heaven and from God above. With this blessing of a gift, Samson utilized his strength for his nation and for his God. Just because the Philistines wanted to be better, or even the Jews for that matter, who wanted to be comparable to Samson, doesn't mean that they it doesn't mean that there were others who were better or stronger just because they wanted to. Excellence is excellence, and Samson was the image of that excellence. Even if you say that you are a warrior for Jesus, it does not mean that you automatically get superpowers, that you are going to be stronger or better than someone like Samson. At the end of the day, God bless Samson. He had the gifts and the skill set. You will lose to those who are blessed by God. The Philistines are actually a great example of what it takes to overcome and dethrone those who are excellent. That's persistent, persistent. Although they never had the strength to defeat Samson on their own, they found a weakness. And Samson, with his lust, as he admitted that the source of his strength was found in his hair, he told this to a prostitute named Delilah. She comes and basically rats him out, and the Philistines cut off his hair, making him weak, gouging out his eyes, enslaving him, and seemingly ruining what God had planned for Israel. The standard is the standard, even to moral issues. The Philistines had their eye on the prize and had been persistent for all these years and knew the only way that they were ever going to achieve excellence was not by coming up with a mock up, but was by destroying and being better than their strong opponent. We could easily look at Samson and say, I would have done it differently. I've actually heard preachers say that. Sure, he did great, but he should have never fell for that prostitute. Really? He got caught into Delilah's web? I think there's always something that we could say a woulda, coulda, shoulda. We could always go that route. But when you bring these up to the Bible and measure it with Jesus, I don't think we would do anything that he would do. I would have never done what he did with Judas. I would have called him out. I wouldn't have let these people spit on me and hurt me and curse me and essentially kill me. Truthfully, I don't know if I would have ever came off my throne and humbled myself in this way. Jesus is the best example of a man, and I would not have done what he did. Going back to the story of Samson, it seems that the Philistines win. You see how skill and excellency eventually falls, and the Philistines find a weakness and become more excellent than him. Till you get to Judges 16 later on, where it says Samson enslaved as a sacrifice, chained unto the pillars with his eyes out, calls to God, begging him to remember. Samson is no longer the standard. He is no longer excellent, yet he desires God to hear him. He knows that he's weak. Desire does not override excellence, but faith does. Faith does. You see, Samson was a skilled warrior and had a God given gift, given for a purpose in his glorious plan. It wasn't just a simple desire. No, 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 no. He utilized his gift for his people and for his God. One simple desire for greatness doesn't override excellence, but faith can. The scriptures are filled with stories of men and women who do not meet the standard, but their God gave them gifts that would override any powers that may be out. This should give the Christian freedom and hope to not just try to be like the next guy. Yeah, that person might have a gift. That person might be skillful. But if you have faith, you can literally do anything. You can move the mountains. Use your gift to bring him glory. I think of Handel's Messiah, Michelangelo's David, or Victor Hugo's Les Miserables, or Tolkien's Lord of the Rings for that matter. None of these are knockoffs or imitations. Sure, they might have been inspired by something, but they're creative stories that these artists stayed faithful and worked extremely hard using their God given gifts. The Bible says, whatever your hand can find to do for good work, do with all your might. And we know that this popular verse, and we know the popular verse that says, whether I eat or drink, I'm going to do it all for the glory of God. And the point is no matter what gift the Lord bless you with, use it for his glory. Not everyone is blessed with the same gift. Not everyone is as good with these gifts as the next person. Christians should have a goal of being some of the best that's out there, being the standard. As a craftsman myself, I believe that the Bible supports us in always putting our best foot forward, growing and learning from our mistakes to use our gifts to shine light into this world. You don't get to just do this type of stuff without the work up front. We can't just copy and paste from somebody else. You don't get to do that without being open to critique or failing, falling, and getting back up again and again and again. All too many times we see creatives live off just the simple desire or potential and judge others from the back row and never actually get out there and do anything with their gifts. If the Lord blessed you with a gift like Samson, he has a purpose through his glorious plan. It might not be the plan that you thought. I'm sure Samson did not plan to go out that way. Work hard. Don't be lazy. This world needs your gifts. Your Father blessed you with the hands and minds to do powerful things for his glory. Don't settle for a cheap imitation or speak critically when you are not out there attempting to make the same impact. Desire does not override excellence, but faithfulness does. Thank you so much for listening or watching the Cultivating Truth podcast. Please give this podcast a like or comment to let us know what you think or what you would like to see us talk about next. Thank you guys so much. Looking forward to seeing you in the next couple of weeks. Blessings.